The disc brakes on my bike have come to the end of their life. A sad story, I know, but they've done pretty blooming well, considering this bike has seen over 15 months worth of riding. Now, the ride that really cooked the brakes and finished them off was when Connor and I tried riding up that hill weighing 125 kilograms. Not specifically the riding uphill part, but the fact we went up and then back down multiple times that day. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to replace the brake pads, I'm going to replace the brake rotors, and I'm also going to clean and lubricate the pistons in the caliper to get everything running sweet. I should probably also consider replacing and bleeding the DOT hydraulic fluid, which is in the brake system too, but that's a far more involved process, so I'm going to save that for a separate video, because right now, I'm going to focus on replacing the worn out components, and I've got a feeling the front brake pads are worn wafer thin. Right, let's get to it. Right, before we get into this, the items and tools that you're going to need are a selection of hex or Torx keys. You're also going to need a brake pad spreading tool. You'll also need a set of discs and pads suitable for your bike. These are SRAM red. We've got 160 for the front, 140 for the rear. I know these are for my bike because it's got my name written on them. Sorry, bad joke. You're also going to need some brake pads suitable to match up with whatever is fitted onto your bike. Now, these exact ones, not only are they the right type for my bike, these are from a small little company called Noah and Theo, who basically make brake pads for every single type of brake that's out there, and you've got a bunch of different compounds to choose from. They're actually at a fairly reasonable price. These are just £7 a pair. I used these in a video a long time ago when I was comparing cheap and expensive brake pads, and these exact ones, being orange, designates that they're ceramic. And I've had a set in another one of my bikes for some time now, and so far so good. So happy days. Now, this isn't a full manufacturer's recommended step-by-step technical nerd guide. This is more about the kind of way that I go about doing this and what I found works best for me after a number of years doing so to keep my brakes running sweet. So, first thing we're going to do is get everything removed from the bike. First thing, remove the wheels from the bike. Next, take the rotors off the wheels and then the brake pads out of the bike. Ah, that's mad how tight that is. Oh, I think it might be dry. Well, that was particularly unpleasant. Oh, they look horrible. Look at that rustiness. Okay, with everything removed from the bike, it's clear to see just how worn everything is. So the brake pads have worn almost completely the whole way through, which I'm actually slightly embarrassed about, having let things get quite so bad on my own bike. They're also pretty rusty, not that that's really changing the performance of them much. So they're definitely ready to rock and roll and get replaced. And then in terms of the disc rotors, so the reason I'm also replacing these rotors is not because they've worn too thin in terms of their minimum wear thickness, which according to the front of this rotor is 1.55 millimeters. It's mostly because the impact of what the heat has done to them. So if you look here carefully at the difference in color between these rotors, obviously we've got a new shiny silver one, but this one has really got these sort of dark burn tint of color all the way around it, and that's just where it's got so hot. And what that means is, at the moment when I'm riding this bike, is as soon as I brake with any sort of real force for longer than a couple of seconds, this rotor heats up super quick and then actually distorts and rubs. So really, I think it's seen better days, and highlights why heavier riders do have a much harder load on their brakes on their bikes. Right, next thing we need to do is move on to the calipers on the bike and start cleaning up the pistons. Now, if you've let your brakes wear thin, like I have, the piston will already be protruding out of the caliper very slightly. So what we want to do here is use our isopropyl alcohol to clean and remove all of the dirt inside. We can then use our cloth, but also this is where the cotton buds, or if you're American, Q-tips, come in handy, because they can also help you get into the little gaps all of the way around the pistons. Now, if the pistons aren't extended from the caliper much, you can pull the brake lever just once or twice to help push the pistons out of the caliper, but don't do too much, because then the pistons could fall out, fluid will go everywhere, and you'll be hating life, and you'll probably need to take your bike to the bike shop. So approach with caution. Why is this inside out? It's going to be a blooper. There you go. Also, some safety gloves. Good idea here. Should have said that at the start. Best way to clean the pistons in the caliper really is just to use isopropyl alcohol. This one is in an aerosol can, which is good for blasting all the rubbish and dirt out. So put your cloth around everywhere, keep your eyes away from this sort of messy area, and then clean it all up, spray away. So cloth in there first. We carefully, if I can, feed this up and through. Give everything, floss it first. Good flossing motion. Everything clean all over. Once we've cleaned most of the general area up and got the worst of the detritus out of the way, that is where our cotton buds or Q-tips come in handy. So we pop this open, take one of these out of the box, or you can use a couple if you want. We've got 200 of them, go to town. You want to spray a little bit of your isopropyl alcohol or disc brake cleaner onto here, and then carefully work your way all around the inside of where the piston is to really clean into all the little nooks and crannies. Do that from the top of the caliper, then you can also turn it and access it from the inside edge as well. You want to get all the way around the perimeter or circumference of this and clean all those little gaps out. Look at all the bits that are coming out already. Okay, in order to apply a little bit of lubrication to the pistons, because inside the caliper there's a rubber seal, what is the best method of practice is to apply a tiny little bit of brake fluid onto a clean cotton bud or Q-tip and just gently wipe that around the inner surface of where that piston will then slide and retract back into the caliper. Obviously on bikes like this one, which use dot fluid, you need to use dot fluid, and bikes which use Shimano or Campagnoli gears, you're probably going to want to use mineral fluid that matches up with what the bike has. A few little bits of precaution you need to take with this kind of stuff. You should really wear gloves. Ideally you should wear eye protection if you're working with it a lot. And dot fluid absorbs moisture from the air very, very quickly, so you really want to keep it in a sealed container with a lid on for as long as physically possible. Right, dunk a little bit of a Q-tip in, and let's get this done. Okay, with a little bit of our brake fluid applied to that surface of the piston, the next thing we need to do is to get the pistons to retract back into the caliper. You've got a couple of different ways to go about it, but here's how I've found best to do it. The way I do is to take my old brake pads, wipe the outer surfaces of them, just so I'm not putting any dirt and contamination back into the clean caliper. And then I can take either my pad spreading tool, or if you don't have one of these, a good quality tyre lever will get the job done. And then you're going to use the old brake pads to push out the pistons back into the caliper. So slide these in, and then I'll take my pad spreading tool, put them in the middle, just gradually wiggle the pad spreading tool in there to get these back in there. With the pistons all the way back into the caliper and the old brake pads out, I can take my cloth and just give the inside of the brake caliper one last little wipe to make sure there's no residual brake fluid left on those outer surfaces, because we don't really want that contaminating our new brake pads. For the front brake, we're going to repeat the exact same process. A little bit of brake fluid, get the pistons back in, and then clean it up, ready to have the new brake pads in. So that's everything done that we need to do on the bike. Next stage of the process is to install the new components. So that's the brake pads into the bike, the new rotors onto the wheels. It's important here to start with a fresh set of gloves. Also, not to contaminate your new components with any of the old bits of brake fluid or the old cloths that we've been using. So start fresh, otherwise your new parts are not going to work very well. Sweaty. Now, when you're reinstalling the brake pad retaining pin, it's easy to just line it straight up and put it back in. But you want to make sure, because this is threaded, you don't over tighten it. It just needs to be finger tight only, and then you've got this extra security clip on the back to keep everything in place. Look at that. Little clip on the back. Now, when it comes to installing your new rotors onto your wheels, first thing it's important is to not touch the braking surface, otherwise you could run the risk of contaminating it. Now, I've got gloves on. This isn't super crucial, but it's good practice. Now, if you cast your minds back, you'll remember that absolutely disgusting noise that the lock ring made as we took it off the rear wheel. So I think what we'll do is treat this thing to a little bit of grease on the thread, and seeing as we've got a big box of Q-tips here, I might as well use the Q-tip to get a little bit of grease onto this thread carefully. Got some Silka Synergetic race grease. Do I need that on the lock ring threads? No, but it's the grease that I've got to hand, so that is going to be perfect. Let's get this other rotor on. I'm going to need some fresh gloves now. I've got grease on them. Okay, rear rotor first. Most bikes will have a slightly smaller rotor on the rear and a larger one on the front, although some bikes will have equal size. This bike has a 140 on the rear, so that's what we're sticking with. So, wheel, rotor, slide this thing on, like so. Then we can carefully take our nicely greased lock ring. Start the thread by hand, as always. Take the tool. It's not as noisy as it was coming off, that's for sure. .40 Newton meters, the recommended torque setting for these lock rings. So that's what we're going to do. It really bugs me when people don't unwind the torque wrench. Okay, that is the bike back together. We have run out of spare parts to put on, which is a good sign that we've done everything the right way. The first things we should do is just a simple check visually of the brake calipers to make sure it looks correct, which it does. Then we can simply spin the wheel, pull the brake, and that works. You might find once you push the pads and the pistons all the way back into the caliper, it might take 1 or 2 pumps of the brake lever to really build that little bit of pressure up and get the caliper to self-adjust. Same for the back. What we can do, spin that. Brake works. And it's important, right? When we've got new brake pads and new disc brake rotors, we need to give everything time to bed in. This is really a case of allowing some of the brake pad material to transfer onto the braking surface of the rotor, and then everything will start to work a lot better. Now, this will happen gradually over the first ride or two, so what you want to do to start with is really avoid jumping on your bike and absolutely slamming on the brakes. Just be quite gentle with them for the first ride or so, and you'll find and you'll notice that gradually the bite of the brake pad starts to improve, and that means you're bedding your brakes in nice. do a good job of that, and they should last for a long, long time and work nicely. So there you go. That's it, job done. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please do get involved in the comments section down below. And if you've had any experience with brake pads like these, well, let me know how you've got on. And as always, if you'd like to help support our channel, subscribe to GCNTech, turn on your notifications. Right, I'm out of here. I better tidy this mess up. See you later.